Patrick Kelly is celebrated as one of the first American designers admitted to the Chambre Syndicale, but before Paris, there was Atlanta, a chapter that shaped the designer's journey in ways fashion history rarely acknowledges. When we talk about American fashion history, Atlanta rarely gets mentioned, but Patrick Kelly's story, like so many others, proves the South and specifically Atlanta can shape and alter global style. This video isn't about Kelly's historic Parisian rise to fame, it's about his scrappy, cultured Atlanta years and why they mattered. Growing up in Mississippi, Kelly was surrounded by women who shaped both his craft and his eye. His mother, a home economics teacher and one of the few black women in her community to hold a master's degree, taught him the fundamentals of sewing. A Louisiana aunt, a seamstress, helped sharpen his technical skills even further, and his grandmother, with her emphasis on church dress and the quiet refinements of womanhood, helped purify his taste. Without realizing it, Kelly had been given both the tools and the vision that would anchor his lifelong devotion to fashion.
Patrick started sketching when he was probably 6 or 7 because he learned it from his mother, Letha, because she was a home economics teacher who had a master's. Who had a master's in the 1940s, 50s. That's amazing.
That's interesting.
You know, and she taught home economics, but she also knew how to draw. So she taught him how to sketch.
Okay.
And he taught him how to sew. Very basic level sewing, but it was sewing nevertheless.
Yep.
And he started making dresses for little girls in the neighborhood. They were basic A-line dresses. Boom. That's all you got. Cut out armholes.
By the late 60s, very early 70s, Kelly briefly attended Jackson State University in Mississippi. Although his time there was brief, it marked the beginning of his aesthetic development. He designed dresses for campus beauty pageants and with encouragement from a mentor, discovered the first platform that would help advance his talent.
Patrick Kelly was at Jackson State University, and he was designing gowns for the campus queens and their court. And he, for some reason, I guess the professors there, they were like, oh, there's scholarship money from this group called the Atlanta Apparel Mart in Atlanta, Georgia. You should ask them for money for supplies, for fabric, for whatever he needed at that point.
So Patrick Kelly took heed of his professor's recommendation and sent in photos of his work. He won the $1,000 scholarship, which in 1973 was a lot of money. This seemed like the perfect opportunity for Kelly. Atlanta was a hub for black people and creators at a time when Southerners from rural areas sought refuge, finding family, acceptance, and the freedom to be themselves. It was a breeding ground for innovation and individuality. When Patrick Kelly arrived in Atlanta in 1974, he entered the city living two lives at once. Locally, Atlanta was navigating its own version of the identity crisis. Maynard Jackson had just become the city's first black mayor, marking a symbolic turning point, one that frightened many white residents. White flight to Cobb, Gwinnett, and Clayton counties accelerated, and those same suburbs voted against joining MARTA. A choice whose consequences continue to ripple through Atlanta's transit infrastructure, leaving the city to reckon with one of the most congested traffic systems in the country. The highways that split through Sweet Auburn and Vine City in the 60s still served as borders of exclusion, carving black neighborhoods apart under the banner of progress. Downtown's white-owned department stores were beginning to decline, while black institutions, artists, and entrepreneurs were rising across the city. The Atlanta University Center was the heartbeat, producing thinkers and creatives who were shaping a new Southern consciousness. As Atlanta Magazine later wrote, the 1965 and 1971 votes against MARTA weren't votes about transportation. They were referendums on race. This was the Atlanta Kelly stepped into, still hesitant to embrace its black identity, but inevitably being remade by it. America was undergoing an identity reckoning, Atlanta was negotiating a racial handoff, and Kelly, a gay black Southern designer, was trying to build beauty in the middle of it all. His work during these years reflected that tension, playful, political, and rooted in the desire to belong somewhere that didn't yet know how to make room for him. As Kelly would often say, at the Black Baptist Church on Sunday, the ladies are just as fierce as the ladies at Yves Saint Laurent haute couture shows. Driven to build stability and make a name for himself, Kelly took on multiple roles while pursuing his own fashion vision. He worked at Barbizon, the School of Modeling, as a modeling coach, styled department store windows long before visual merchandising was a job title, and gained valuable experience inside Atlanta's retail scene. And it was here that he began to build his name. His first clients were drag queens, performers who needed glamour, exaggeration, humor, and spectacle. Designing for them taught Kelly fearlessness, camp, and the art of creating clothes that could perform. He also designed for church mothers and society women, fitting real Southern curves at a time when fashion was aggressively fat-phobic. As he told People magazine in 1987, "I design for fat women, skinny women, all kinds of women. My message is, you're beautiful just the way you are." Inclusivity wasn't a trend for Kelly, it was lived experience. Alongside his clients and retail jobs, Kelly launched his own boutique in Atlanta, the Mothball Matinee. The shop became a testing ground for his style, a mix of secondhand finds, reworked garments, and original pieces that reflected his playful, daring eye. For Kelly, it wasn't just about clothes. It was about creating a space where glamour and humor could collide. The boutique gave him a platform to refine the aesthetic DNA that would carry him beyond Atlanta. Stationed in the back of a hair salon, the Mothball Matinee speaks to Kelly's innate sensibility to be nimble and make an impact no matter the circumstances. But it was his role at the Yves Saint Laurent Rive Gauche store in Atlanta where he dressed windows and crafted displays that proved especially pivotal. There, Kelly honed an eye for presentation and drama, skills that would later skyrocket him into the international fashion conversation. It was also here in Atlanta that Kelly met Pat Cleveland, the model who would become both his muse and ally. Already a fashion icon in her own right, Cleveland recognized his talent and encouraged him to think beyond the infrastructural limits of the South. Their friendship proved crucial. She would later help open doors for him in New York and Paris, reminding Kelly that his vision was bigger than the Southern stage. Kelly's eye for star power didn't stop there. He also helped elevate Iman, styling her and championing her presence long before she became an international supermodel. At a time when few in America recognized her potential, Kelly saw her brilliance clearly. His belief in her beauty and charisma positioned her for runway success and proved that while he thrived in fashion, he excelled in seeing possibility where others couldn't or simply didn't want to. Fashion history always centers New York, Paris, Milan, and London, but Patrick Kelly proves Atlanta belongs in that conversation. Everything that made him iconic in Paris came from the South. The buttons, Southern craft. The bows, Black church femininity. The humor, drag culture. The spectacle, Atlanta nightlife. The inclusivity, learned by fitting real Southern bodies. The resourcefulness, hair salons, thrift shops, and the AUC hustle. Patrick Kelly's influence is about contemporary nostalgia. His work is everywhere in modern culture.
A lone American conquered the world of high fashion and beat the French at their own game. Yet the toast of Paris arrived penniless from Mississippi to trade Brits for glitz. The incredible success story of Patrick Kelly.
In Paris, Patrick Kelly's career accelerated quickly. His playful, button-covered knits and bold silhouettes moved from boutique curiosity to international runway presence, eventually earning him admission into the Chambre Syndicale de Pret-a-Porter, a rare honor for an American designer. But at the height of his Paris success, the visual language he built remained rooted in the Southern Black culture that shaped him.
Atlanta was the stomping ground and was the most important pit stop on his tour. It had to be. New York was just a blip, and Paris was just something that because of the racism in New York, Paris was a fresh start. I can only reiterate that Atlanta was the major stop for him. It was, yeah, Paris gave him the accolades, but Atlanta formed every business decision, every marketing decision, every money decision, everything about his aesthetic decision, it formed in Atlanta.
Beyonce has worn Patrick Kelly, most famously to Kelly Rowland's birthday party earlier this year, bringing global attention back to the archive and reminding the industry how timeless his vision is. Miley Cyrus wore his iconic Eiffel Tower dress with the outline of the landmark emblazoned in crystals across the front while posing with the Eiffel Tower during her press tour for her latest release, Something Beautiful, which reintroduced Kelly's playful irreverence to a new generation. Tracee Ellis Ross has worn Kelly in editorials and for street-style Instagram moments, often highlighting how he promoted inclusivity and uniqueness decades before it was fashionable. Zendaya, along with La Roche, has interpreted Kelly's silhouettes in modern editorials and street-style moments, transporting his codes directly into Gen Z fashion awareness. Maximalism, joy dressing, archive fashion, queer exuberance, body celebration, Kelly anticipated all of it. He inspired and predicted today's fashion landscape. Patrick Kelly's Atlanta years were the foundation of his career. His story reminds us that the South creates culture long before the world decides to crown it. His designs, joyful, political, playful, queer, and deeply Southern, still feel ahead of their time. Patrick Kelly took Atlanta and his Southern upbringing to Paris and created history, and the world still hasn't caught up yet.